Professor Beltherin had been teaching galactic military history at the prestigious Kepler University for over 2 centuries. His 4 eyes had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the evolution of warfare from primitive energy weapons to sophisticated quantum disruption fields. Today, however, he found himself facing something unprecedented in his academic career, a guest lecturer from the recently contacted human species. "Class," Professor Beltherin announced to his mixed-species audience of graduate students. "Today we have the honor of hosting Dr. Michael Chen, a military historian from the human homeworld of Earth. He will be discussing the conflict patterns of his species." Dr. Chen stood before the holographic display, a middle-aged human with graying temples and surprisingly calm demeanor for a member of a species that had earned the designation Deathworlders. The alien students, Altarians, Zephyrians, Crystallans, and others, settled into their seats with the polite attention reserved for academic presentations. "Thank you, Professor," Dr. Chen began, activating the display. "I thought I'd start with something recent to give you context. This is what we call World War II. The hologram shifted to show a global map with conflict zones highlighted in red. Within moments, nearly the entire planet was bathed in crimson. As you can see, this conflict involved approximately 70% of our planet's landmasses and lasted roughly 6 years. Student Kethala, a young ethereal, raised a translucent appendage. "Dr. Chen, surely this represents multiple separate conflicts? No single war could encompass such geographical scope. Actually, this was considered one war. The casualty estimates range from 70 to 85 million dead." The classroom fell silent. Professor Beltherin's chromatophores flickered with confusion. "Dr. Chen, perhaps there's been a translation error. Did you say million?" "Million, yes. Though some historians argue for higher numbers. A Mechanoid student, Zara 7, processed this information with visible difficulty." Dr. Chen, for context, the largest conflict in recorded galactic history, the Altarian Succession Wars, resulted in approximately 50,000 casualties over a 30-year period. You're describing casualties that exceed our entire galactic population engaged in warfare. Dr. Chen nodded sympathetically. "I understand the numbers seem large. But you have to remember, this was considered a moderately sized conflict by human standards." "Moderately sized?" Professor Beltherin's voice climbed several octaves. "Well, yes. We've had larger conflicts." Dr. Chen advanced the display. "This was World War I, about 20 years earlier. Only 15 to 20 million casualties, but it was significant because it introduced new warfare technologies." Student Thexmore, a young Zephyrian, was frantically taking notes. "What kind of technologies?" "Chemical weapons, mechanized armor, aircraft-based combat, and what we called artillery, long-range kinetic bombardment systems." "You weaponized chemistry?" breathed Kethala, her form shimmering with distress. "Oh, that was just the beginning. By World War II, we had developed something called atomic weapons, devices that created artificial stellar fusion reactions for destructive purposes." The alien students exchanged horrified glances. Professor Beltherin consulted his database frantically. "Dr. Chen, according to our records, stellar fusion manipulation is considered a theoretical impossibility for warfare applications. The energy requirements alone. We solved that problem in 1945. Used them twice, actually. Each device destroyed an entire city instantly." A crystalline student, Vel 9, began flickering rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in her species. You actually deployed stellar fusion weapons against your own species?" "Well, technically against enemy cities, but yes. It was effective enough to end the war." Dr. Chen paused, noting the stunned expressions around the room. Should I continue with the smaller conflicts? Smaller? Professor Veltherin whispered. The Korean War, Vietnam, the various Middle Eastern conflicts, the Napoleonic Wars, the American Civil War. Dr. Chen counted off on his fingers. Oh, and the Mongol conquests were quite extensive. Genghis Khan's campaigns alone covered most of 2 continents. Zara 7's optical sensors were cycling rapidly. Dr. Chen, how many wars has your species engaged in? Dr. Chen considered this thoughtfully. That's actually a difficult question. If we count every significant armed conflict in recorded human history, we're looking at several thousand documented wars. Though that number depends on how you define war versus battle, campaign, or police action. Several thousand? Student Morkek, a peaceful herbivore, looked physically ill. Human civilization is roughly 10,000 years old, and we've been in a state of warfare somewhere on the planet for approximately 9,800 of those years. The classroom had gone completely silent. Professor Veltherin realized his auxiliary breathing apparatus had stopped functioning due to shock. But, Dr. Chen continued cheerfully, the interesting part isn't the frequency of our conflicts, it's how they shaped our technological development. He advanced the display to show a timeline of human innovations. Metallurgy, chemistry, physics, medicine, engineering, communication technology, space travel, virtually every major advancement in human civilization was either directly developed for warfare or significantly accelerated by military necessity. Cathala's form had gone nearly transparent. You're saying your entire technological civilization is based on developing better ways to kill each other? Essentially, yes. Though we prefer to think of it as competitive innovation under pressure. Dr. Chen smiled. For example, the same technology that allowed us to build atomic weapons also gave us nuclear power. The rocket systems we developed to deliver warheads became our space exploration programs. Student Thexmore looked up from his notes. Dr. Chen, if humans are constantly at war with each other, how did you achieve interstellar travel? Surely the social instability. Oh, we're not at war constantly. Sometimes we have peace for several years at a time. And when we do achieve peace, we usually use the breathing room to prepare for the next conflict. It's quite efficient, actually. Professor Veltherin finally found his voice. Dr. Chen, what you're describing suggests that your species treats warfare as normal. Well, yes. Conflict resolution through organized violence is a fundamental part of human social structure. We have entire academic disciplines devoted to studying it, extensive cultural traditions around it, and most of our recreational activities simulate it in various forms. The professor looked around his classroom, noting that several students appeared to be in shock. Dr. Chen, perhaps we should conclude today's session. Dr. Chen glanced at his notes. But I haven't even gotten to the interesting parts yet. We haven't discussed tactics, or strategy, or the evolution of military doctrine, or perhaps next week. Professor Veltherin interrupted hastily. As the students filed out in stunned silence, Dr. Chen called after them cheerfully, for next week, try to read up on something called guerrilla warfare. It's really quite fascinating how humans learn to fight asymmetric conflicts. Professor Veltherin watched his traumatized students leave, then made a mental note to add a psychological counseling session to next week's syllabus. He was beginning to understand why humans were classified as Deathworlders.